Uh, Shalom, everybody. Shalom, shalom. This is another segment of By the Word of Our Testimony. And I don't want to use the word excited because I always use that word, but I am over the moon. I'm on top of the world because I finally got to interview my sis Zoe all the way from the UK. Her schedules are busy, mine are busy, and then because of the time difference, I've been begging her to do this for months because this is somebody that I admire so much spiritually, and somebody that she's one of my sisters, one of my sister friends, and somebody that I've grown quite fond of very quickly, and I can't wait for her to share her story with everybody. So that being said, I have the same 5 questions that I always ask, and I always like to give my participants time. That's why I only have the 5 questions so they can take their time to answer. So welcome, Zoe. Woo-hoo. Um,
Hi.
the first question is, how did you come into the truth? And take your time.
Oh, I, mm. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on. I should say that. And thank you for being patient and persistent because we got there in the end, right?
Yes.
So, how did I come into the truth? It was like stepping stones. I'd
Mhm.
say it was stepping stones. It wasn't just like overnight or anything like that. And I think it was, yeah. It started when I used to go to a Pentecostal church. So I'd been to a
Mhm.
few different churches in my sort of like relationship with Yahuwah. Growing up, we grew up in Catholic church, and then I changed to Pentecostal. Then I went to Church of England, and then I came up to Pentecostal. And then from there, that's when I'd say things started to change a bit. And you started to ask more questions, and it was really interesting because um, Yahuwah brought people into my life to throw me a breadcrumb, and from that breadcrumb, I pick it up and start investigating, and then I'd get another breadcrumb. So it all really started, I suppose, when I just started asking more questions about, um, the how we eat. Was it Leviticus? I think it's Leviticus 23, and it goes through all the feasts, but also, and I realized from there that the feasts were a holy convocation for all time. All these feasts, they were for all time. And then I said to myself, well, all time isn't finished yet. We're still in time. So why are we not doing the feast? Why are we not doing Sabbath or Shabbat as I came to know it? So those are the sort of early questions. And I'd say that was back in 2014.
Mhm.
And then I met somebody at a sort of like church convention, and then she started talking about, and I never met this woman in my life, and then she started talking about, oh, we're the real Jews. I was like, what are you talking about? I thought this one was crazy. I just turned to the person I had met there, another person, and me and her had started getting, quite friendly. And I said to this person who I'd met there, um, Maz, I think I don't know about your friend. I don't know if she's all right. And then I started like backing off, and her and the lady were just talking about it, and then I got more curious, and I said, "What do you mean?" And then she sent me some videos, and then when I got home, the next day I watched the videos, and then I just knew straight away that what was being said in the video, it was actually Kingdom Preppers. It was the ministry Kingdom Preppers on
Mhm.
YouTube, and it was the story of the Hebrews, or the true story of the Hebrews. It was that video, and then when I saw it, I couldn't believe it the first time. I thought I was in some sort of like out. I was in another dimension. I felt, and then I watched it again, and then I knew it was true. I just knew, I had a conviction that this is who you are. And at that point, so many things sort of fell into place, in terms of what I'd felt and gone through in my life before. And then from there, basically, I just started again, picking up the breadcrumbs that are on the floor, breadcrumbs that lead along the trail
Mm-hmm.
of discovery. And I just started learning a bit more about who we are as Hebrews, why we came to be where we are, and that was it. And I think in the early days, Watchmen mini, the Watchmen Whited Out series were
Mm-hmm.
instrumental in giving me foundational knowledge and understanding. So, and there was nobody in the UK that I knew of. So I was on my own for about a year, and then I started praying, and I said, Father, I'm really lonely. I need company now. And then I found a congregation, and I suppose it all sort of like took off from there, really.
So you this isn't part of my questions, but so you ended up, once you came to the truth, you just stopped going to church, or did you stop going to church before then? Before, or you know what I mean? Like, what was the?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I had, so I had started keeping Shabbat even before I knew about Shabbat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would start doing my Bible studies on a Saturday morning, and that's where I'd be until about maybe 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, just doing praise and worship, Bible study, reading, just praying. Um, and and I felt that was part of my day. That was part of instrumental for me. Because I felt going to church on the Sunday, I wasn't doing Bible study for myself, and I needed that time. And that's where, as soon as I started implementing the Shabbat, unknown to myself, I was doing it. That's when it's like my understanding was being opened by the Ruach, and more questions started to sort of like filter down into my spirit through from the Ruach. And then I was starting questioning the church. And then on those days when I was on the Shabbats that I didn't realize I was keeping, I Yahuwah was just talking to me, and Ruach was just teaching me stuff, and I was just seeing the Bible in a different way. What? It's I'm so sorry. I was myself. I wouldn't
You have a
laugh.
flashback.
So I was like, huh? I was getting taught so much. The like, my daily bread. I was being given daily bread on the Shabbat.
Hmm.
Fresh bread, fresh manna. It just felt like I was just getting new word, and just the understanding of the Bible. I was seeing it with new eyes, and then I realized I was still going to the church, to the Pentecostal church, but I was there sitting down there listening, and I was getting daily word from the Ruach every week. He was giving me a word for the week, a word for the week, a word for the week, and for the week ahead. Sorry, and then I would go to church on a Sunday, and I was like, "That's not everything the pastor said." I said, "That's not true. That's not true." Something was rebelling inside of me. I was sitting down in the pews, and I was like, that's not true. That's not true. In myself, I was saying, that's not true. That's not true. And then something said to me, there's something different about a particular pastor. It was a lady pastor, deacon. And she was a pastor. She wasn't a deacon. And uh there was something different about her, and then something different about the bishop himself of the whole church. Again, it's an evangelical church. And something said to me, these are covenant keepers. They keep the Shabbat. So, huh? And it kept on saying, that one there and that one there, they keep the Shabbat. And I said, and at this point, I knew I was talking to the Ruach. And I said, but what are they doing here? And he said, don't you know? This is a job. They've come to work on Sunday. They keep the Shabbat on Saturday. Said to me,
Okay. Wow. Next question. See, I don't want to go into your personal life about our personal friendship, but this is kind of like what got you and I close, that your spiritual eye and how sensitive you are spiritually. Well, I'm not going to open that can of worms because you don't want your business on there. So I'm not going to do it, I promise. Second question. What has the journey been like since you've been in the truth?
um, up and down, lonely at times, um, testing to myself, um, eye-opening. At the beginning, it was just bewilderment, couldn't believe it, denial, then realization of, are you sure this is me? Then just through a real, there was a real lot of emotional regulation going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it still is a lot of emotional regulation as I come into different um, areas of truth and understanding and knowledge. Um, but in everything, it's made me be the person I'm becoming, and it's given me a true understanding of my function. It's given me understanding of the gifts or my personality, and I'm talking about my Yahuwah given personality, not the restraints that I've labored under, the um um or the personality traits that I've developed because of living in a corrupt world. Do you know what I mean? Through
Mm-hmm.
disappointment, traumas, and whatever, whatever. So it's made me realize what my true spirit traits are as given to me by Yahuwah, and made me uh, detach from those characteristics of the world. So that's not my personality. This is my personality. So basically, it's made me realize who I actually am. I didn't know myself before,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm coming into knowing myself now and feeling very comfortable with that. It's made me realize coming into truth has made me grow more with the Father and made me see him outside of the Christianized perspective. And it's made the relationship much more sincere, and it's given clarity to the relationship. It's also this walk, this journey, this awakening has made me realize the sacrifice that Yahusha actually paid. And because of that, how much he loves me, and realize that I could never do anything half as much to save myself. So why try? So sometimes I need to come back and be humbled. And when I need to be humbled, those are the things that come to mind. You couldn't have done it yourself.
Mm.
You need to be this person, you need to forgive that person, you need to speak to that person, you need to step back a bit, you need to, because if he didn't do it for you, you wouldn't be in this position of having this dilemma right now. you wouldn't be here. You would have been cancelled. And there's many times that I know that my life could have been cancelled. Could have been cancelled even in the womb. I've told you before, I'm a twin. My sister died in the womb next to me. I stayed in that same room with her for 5 months further. I was growing next to my deceased sister.
Hmm.
So we should have been, I should have been taken out before I even made it into this world. But um, I wasn't, and I realized that it's because a price was paid, a heavy price was paid, and I owe it all to you, Husha. This is what going through this walk has taught me. This is what it's taught me. This is what I've learned. I've just learned to appreciate and truly understand the sacrifice. I think that does that answer the question? Have I gone
Yeah, it
off?
does. No, no,
Oh,
no,
right.
you're fine. You're fine. No, it answers the question perfectly because being in this truth, it really does change your perspective about Yah, about Yahusha, about our function. What that I was actually created with a purpose, and he sees value in me, and everything is completely different from what the world has taught us about
Yeah,
ourselves because there's something special
definitely.
and unique about us that we don't despise it anymore because we understand. So I get it. So this third question, you kind of already answered it, but if you want to add more to it, I would love that. The third question is, what is the difference that you see since you've left the church between the churchianity and being in this awakening?
What's the difference in the church? What in me, in how I function in
And
the
how you
awake?
see it, yeah, however you want to answer it, how you function or how you see the church world versus the awakening world, and just for everybody that doesn't understand that when we talk about the truth of the awakening, what we're saying is we came into the understanding that the true children in the book, the word of the Most High, is us. And we were taught that it was Europeans, but we actually have come from learning from research, DNA, historical evidence, and all kinds of information that has been revealed and exposed and researched that we are actually the true people, the true Israelites in the Bible. So I just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there just in case people don't know. But yeah, so in terms of, and you can answer it any way you want, in terms of the world that you live in now in this truth versus when you were in Christianity, do you see a difference? And if you do, what is it?
Humility.
Mm,
Not being so positive about things that I think I know.
that's
Um,
good.
um, yeah. Also, I just see people who are still in those, in those pews, in those traps, in those churches, and in that web of Christianity. I just see how I used to be. I just see how lost I was, and now I just know how free I am. I really am free because I know the truth and I have a choice. I'm able to make the right choice, not what I've been told to think, but I've been given the truth and you can accept it or not. So I've been given a real choice. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, those are the differences. Those are the realities of, for me, of Christianity versus truth, humility and truth. Well, truth, given the choice of given the truth and given a choice, you have a real choice now. And then when I made took the choice of continuing down this path, it humbled me. And humility plays a part in everything that I think, that I speak, that I choose to hear, how I choose to respond, how I choose to regulate my emotional well-being, um, how I choose to um, give self-care. It all stems from humility of the Father and really knowing my place.
That's good. That's really good. And then, I want to go back to what you talked about earlier about how once you started coming into the truth and you started to study for yourself, and then you would still go to church and be like, that's not true. That's not true. That's paramount because we we entrusted ourselves to these leaders, and they entrusted themselves to leaders, and we've all been misled, and we've all been taught things like, oh, the law is done away with, and not understanding that the definition of sin is not walking according to the law. And so just knowing that we can fully, and or not reading the Bible where, because this is what I was told, that, oh, that was more for the Jews of who they assumed were the Europeans, and it's more for historical purposes, when you actually rob yourself, because most of us are taught, when we come into Christianity, it's like, I don't know where to start, and they tell you to start with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's where they tell most people
Right.
to start. They should tell you to go to the first book of the Bible, because in Christianity, I would be like, oh, all these begats, and Abraham begot that, but it matters because it takes us. That's foundational because it proves who we are when we go back to all those begats. Because Noah had three sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We were taught we were the descendants of Ham. We're not. We are the descendants of Shem. The Europeans that are claiming our heritage are the descendants of Japheth. And it's all documented. It's based on archaeology, it's based on migrations, it's based on so many different things. But if we're not interested and we don't explore that part of the Bible, then we miss it. And then it's like, oh, Jesus died for all. Yeah, I think you missed it, and you need to go all the way back to Genesis and understand who he came for. He offered salvation to Gentiles to trigger us to come back to him because we turned our backs on him. It's like, oh, that and we have so many deceptions that most people don't do the research. They just kind of regurgitate what they heard. Oh, that's a white man's book, and but you still celebrate the holidays. So, you know what I mean? But once you understand that's our heritage,
Mm.
we're heirs in that book, then it should make you want to draw closer to the Most High, study the Word, go all the way back to the beginning. And it's really jaw dropping when you get the ideology of Christianity out of your minds, of why we should go all the way back to the beginning, which they never. I don't know about you, but they never told me to go back to the beginning.
No, I was told, start in the New Testament. I was told starting new Matthew, Mark,
Mm-hmm.
Luke, and John. That's because they said it would be it would be more important to know about Yahusha or JC, um, and then you can go back to the Old Testament. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was it is very misleading. It's very misleading, and it sets you up on a path of um um misinformation when you start in the middle of the book as opposed to the beginning, because then you miss out all the prophecies about him, all the prophecies that were prophesied about the coming savior. You miss all that. You miss everything in Isaiah. You miss all that in all the the older Testament books, you know. And then you don't, all you know when you start Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that, oh, Jesus, meek and mild, he was a really nice guy. But you don't understand what his purpose is. You
Right.
don't understand why he's there. And you definitely don't know about the retribution that he's going to place on the world. Because when I started reading the Old Testament and I started understanding, seeing Yahusha in the books of Isaiah and in some of the other Old Testament books, I was like, but this guy that you're talking about, Jesus meek and mild, is not the same person that I've been reading about, how retribution is going to come through him.
Come on.
So someone's playing about here, and someone's misleading people. You just think that he's so sweet. Oh, he's so gentle. He's so patient. Oh, but he had a temper when he got all the people out of the temple, all the money changed out the temple. Oh, he had a little bit of a temper. Oh, did he really? Really? He had a temper. You ain't seen nothing, and you better get to know.
That's right.
So, you're right. I mean, setting somebody up and just halfway through the book and not without giving them the full understanding, the foundational background knowledge that this person had been prophesied of and what he was going to do, you cannot have a full appreciation of who he is when he turns up, in
Mm.
terms of in the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John when we first see him. So it it gives you half truths, and it cuts away so much depth of the character of Yahusha and why he's really here. It cuts away so much. They have all I can say is that everyone is going to have to get what they put into the lies, they're going to get out in the judgment, you know. So there's going to be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth when it comes to the judgment, because it's those people who have set up doctrines, Christianese doctrines, and led people away from the truth of who Yahushua really is, have done a misservice to
Mm-hmm.
trillions, millions, generations of people, and the blood literally is on their hands. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
blood on their hands because they knowingly misled so many people from the truth of who Yahusha actually is, what he actually came to do, what his character actually is. And it ain't that Jesus meek and mild business.
That's so true. And I think that's why they also kind of steer you away from Revelation, because
Yeah.
they would I don't know what people are going to do when they find out he's coming to chop people's heads off. It's
People will be losing
scripture.
their minds, okay? Losing their tiny minds, or dropping down dead out of fright and heart attacks, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, and which is why I'm saying half of these people who are under falsehood of who he is, if they actually knew what he's coming back to do, would they still be here in Christianity? Would they still be here in Christianity if they
Mm-hmm.
really knew who Yahusha actually is, what he's actually
Mm-hmm.
going to do, what he's going to do, how you're going to be judged? Would you still be here sitting down saying, Hallelujah, Amen, Pastor, preach? No, I don't think you would. Because if that pastor preached, you sure know that you would listen and fix up. And in fact, half of those people wouldn't be there, because I don't think a lot of people want to hear the truth. They just want to hear a version of the truth, just so that they can pacify themselves and say, I've done my bit, I've done my good bit for the week. And it works well with my little conscience, and I can go off and continue sinning. I don't, if they was to know the truth, then you wouldn't, those pastors wouldn't be so rich.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be so rich. They wouldn't be running around in really expensive cars and private jets and big houses and sending their children to private school. And designer suits and shoes, and wives kitted out. Everyone's kitted out. Church looks like the 16th chapel. You know, it's your
Is that
local
scripture?
church.
That's
Everybody,
right.
but you've got the 16th chapel on the corner. I mean, what's that about?
That's right. Because that's not everything is completely opposite. And the other thing is that people have got to open the word and study it themselves because they would even be convicted by the form of grace that we've been deceived by. The world's mindset of grace is basically like that devil worshiper, do what thou wilt.
Yeah,
Oh, Jesus died on the cross for me, not for you to continue in sin, especially willful sin. That is not grace. Grace is, okay, I'm going to give you some more time to get this right because I don't want to see you perish. There's an end goal to grace, and people miss it. They're just in this weird concept of, okay, I can do whatever I want because all I have to do is ask for forgiveness. That's not how this works. We're supposed to be obedient. If he came and we're supposed to follow his ways, he obeyed the most high. He sought after the most high and he was fully divine. So and then he says, follow me. But the world has taken him and their concept of him on this wicked path where people are so blind. That's why we call it the truth. Because we've awakened to the fact that the path you're on is dangerous and it does not apply to scripture.
right.
And that's scary. Okay, only two more questions. So the next one is, what do you think of the current state of our community today?
You mean the awakened community?
Hmm.
We've come a long way. I think we've come a long way from where we were. From when I came into truth in 2014, 15. Um, and it's only been a short time, but there's so much has changed within from then till now. You know,
Hmm.
so many people have come into truth in a short space of time. Um, and I would generally say that most people in truth are here for the right reasons. Um, but they just know, we all know that we've still got a lot to learn about ourselves. Um, um, and a lot to unlearn about how what we picked up in the world through our past experiences with parents growing up, school, work, past relationships, friendships, whatever. And I think at the moment, it's like a plaster has been taken off.
Mm.
And the cut is trying to heal. But from time to time, it gets a little bit infected, and you might need a bout of antibiotics to clear it up or something. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so it's healing. I'd say our community is in the process of healing, um, but in a space where they want to do better, but sometimes the better that they need to be is a very hard place for them to travel to, because they have to face a lot of their own misgivings, fears, traumas, and they don't know how to do it. Um, I just think that our community, because of the traumas that we've gone through, generational traumas that we've gone through, and also generational lessons that we've learned because of traumas that our ancestors and our parents and grandparents and great grandparents have gone through.
Hmm.
Um, we've inherited those traumas, and I think we need to start learning how to give ourselves a break, Give yourself a break in terms of it's okay not to feel okay every day. Do you know what I mean? It's okay to sometimes just feel, oh, I just can't do this today. It's okay to cry. It's okay to,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to act out a bit from time to time in terms of why did I have to go through this? Because it always comes back to, well, this is the curses, but you are the generation who now going to start reaping the benefits. So I think we have to go through the cycle, and I think there's still a reluctance to allow ourselves to go through the cycle of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say of our community, we need to be a bit kind to each other. We need to be kinder. We actually need to be kinder. And I know
Mm-hmm.
Black people, well, I wouldn't say I don't know. I know it's definitely the Caribbean experience, coming from parents of the Caribbean. Um, and I would say Americans as well, African Americans. Um, we've always been harder on ourselves because of the background that we've had, and we can't afford to be soft. No one's going to support you when you're soft. You have to support yourself, and there's no one's going to carry you if you can't just pull yourself together and keep it moving. No one's going to carry you the way other cultures carry each other. So I think now that we've come into truth, we have to be kinder to each other. We have to be more understanding to each other. We have to stop taking offense so quickly. This is another thing. You don't have to be offended too much and get
Mm-hmm.
offended too quickly. Just chill. I would say just chill. Maybe don't jump to offense. Think about what you've been offended by, and do a bit of emotional critical thinking as to, am I justified to actually be thinking that about this person? Was it an offense? Did they mean it like that? So I just think that we just need to um be kind to yourself, give yourself a break, and be kind to each other a bit more,
Yes.
be a bit more understanding.
Yes, I agree. Last question, and then you're off the hook. What advice would you give to people that are newly in the truth, that are just coming in to this awakening?
Well, I think that would be, okay, remember your first joy. Remember the place of your first peace. Remember the place where you first felt your conviction of who you are, not who somebody told you are because of facts and figures. Remember your first conviction of the Ruach HaKodesh that he instilled in you. Remember your first conviction of peace. Remember that first place where you felt real joy in Yahusha. Never leave that place, because you're going to need to be able to find your way back to that feeling when things get rough along the journey.
Mm-hmm.
When people tell you X, Y, and Z about, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. In truth, we don't do this in truth, we don't do that in truth. People trying to impose their own doctrines. People want to be heard. Ego and pride is still rampant, and people always want to be heard. You need to know for yourself, where was the place when I first felt conviction, where I first felt Yahusha, where I first felt the Ruach HaKodesh. I need to get back to that place, because once I can find myself back in that place, then everything that anybody else tells me that is not truth, they can't take my joy away from me. Once I'm back at my joyful place, they can't disrupt my journey. They can't disrupt my relationship with Yahusha, with the Ruach, with the Father, because you find yourself back to the beginning of your relationship. Does that make sense? You're going back to the beginning. Go back to your first place where you first met him, so that anybody that tries to take anything from you along the way, tries to disrupt your peace and your joy through their own man-made doctrine about what you should and shouldn't do, they can't do that, because your spiritual conviction takes you right back to where you started. And that is your confirmation, your secret place, your safe place, and your justification of where you are, why you are there, and why you're on this journey. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've learned, I think I've heard many things since I've been on this journey. And I've learned that along the way, especially at the beginning when I knew nothing and I was very, very eager to learn and learn and learn. And I'd listen to anything, you'd listen to this, you'd listen to that. And then you stop doing things that you used to do. And I realized, no, actually, that was wrong. Because I realized that there were certain things that I was doing in my relationship with the Father, with the Ruach, even in church, that was instilled in me by him, not by the church, by him. And you're telling me that I should put that down? No, that was just part of my relationship building with him that he used to get me to this place where I am today. Never put down your first love for anybody. Anybody. Never put down those experiences that he placed in you. Because if it wasn't for those experiences, those were parts of the puzzle that brought you into truth and to where you are today. So why would you disregard them? No. Test everything that comes out of the mouth of these teachers, leaders,
Mm-hmm.
opinionists, whatever. Test everything that comes out of it, and we test it with the word. With the word that never fails. And then the Ruach will come and give you conviction on top of that word. And then in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses will come and give you conviction on top of that. So when people are trying to instill new doctrine in you because of power, ego tripping, whatever they feel that they've now found in this truth, you need to test them, and don't feel ashamed to do it. And you don't have to keep on nodding your head all the time. That's what I learned. Don't keep on nodding your head and say, oh, really, really? I just, okay, I'll get back to you on that. And don't feel obliged that you have to agree with everything these people say.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel obliged, don't feel obligated. Because the only person you need to feel obligated to is to Yahuwah. None of them died on the cross for you. And even if they could, I bet they wouldn't.
How
Or
about
died
that?
on the wood. None of them went into the depths of hell for you and rose again on the 3rd day. None of them did. So therefore, none of them have the right to take away your joy and your peace that that you got as part of your journey to where you are today. That's what I would say.
You preached it, girl. You preached it. That was so good. And guess what? You are off the hook. Thank you so much, Zoe. That was a perfect ending. That was an absolute perfect ending. Phenomenal advice. It's the first time, I always ask the same questions, and it was wonderful advice, because we feel like when we come into the truth, it's almost like we're back into an infantile state spiritually, and we want to do the right thing, and we want to understand better, and we want to do all things right. But like you said, there's those wolves that come along and try to mislead. That's why we have to stay attached to our first love. Girl, you slammed it. That was a, what's that called, a home run slam dunk. So thank you so much, y'all, for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Share this wonderful testimony with your friends. And Zoe, thank you so, so much for your time. And y'all, we will see you on the next by the word of our testimony with Aruka at the well.
Thank
All
you.
right.